Well, let's talk about towing, weights, capacities and off-road ability. What are the key numbers you need to know as an owner and as a fleet manager if you're having these vehicles on your fleet? So let's start off with some of the four-wheel drive key numbers. First up, I'm comparing three different Hiluxes to give you a bit of an idea of the spread between the three different models. The Rogue here, of course, the Workmate, which doesn't have the 48 volt mild hybrid, and the SR with the 48 volt mild hybrid. So you get a bit of a comparison and you can see the differences between them and what might be suitable for fleet and what would be more for a novated lease for you to own and drive yourself. As always, forgive the notes, but need them. First up, we're on the beach. Wading depth. How deep can we take it into the ocean? No, we're not going to do that. Let me rephrase that. How deep can the creek or the river crossing be for wading through it? Well, on all the Hilux models, the wading depth is 700 millimeters. That's a bit deeper. We're not going to try that. Next up, we have ground clearance. Now, out of the three models we're talking about with the Hilux here, the Rogue has the best ground clearance, obviously because it's more attuned to doing four-wheel drive off-roading, 265 millimeters, whereas both the Workmate and the SR have a ground clearance of 216 millimeters. Pretty good. Means you can do some pretty good tracks and be confident you're not going to bottom out, but the Rogue there is the winner. We then look at the key angles when you're off-roading, approach and departure angles. The approach angle, which is way down the front of the vehicle, is the angle when you're approaching an obstacle or going to go up a steep climb. How great is the angle going to be, can it be, before the bumper bar hits it, before the tyres do? And on the front of the Hilux Rogue here, that's 31 degrees. The departure angle, which I'm sitting right above at the moment, is at the back of the vehicle, and that's after you've gone over the hump and down and clearing onto the track the other side, that dip through there. What is the maximum angle you can go to without the rear bumper hitting the ground instead of the tyres? And that angle is 23 degrees. So there's some key numbers there to understand. It's a very capable stock four-wheel drive, very good off-road ability, but as always, there's limits to things. Let's move along now into towing. Towing. This vehicle, like all Hiluxes, has a brake towing capacity of 3,500 kilos. It is pretty much the industry standard now for 4x4 utes, 3,500 kilos. That means whatever you're towing behind cannot weigh more than 3,500 kilos. But you need to understand some very key, important and legally compliant numbers you need to adhere to on the vehicle to keep yourself legally compliant and safe and insurable. First up, we'll talk about the curb weights. The Rogue here has a curb weight of 2,286 kilos. That's it by itself, without me, without the gear, hardly any fuel in it and nothing else in it at all, 2286. The Workmate comes in at 2115 kilos and the SR at 2,135 kilos. They're a little bit lighter. So how does that translate out? Well, when you look at the gross vehicle mass of each vehicle, the gross vehicle mass is the maximum amount the vehicle can weigh. That's you, your family, all your stuff, fully fueled, loaded to the gunnels, packed to the hilt. All the Hiluxes cannot weigh more than 3,050 kilos. So how we then work out the payload of what each vehicle can carry is we subtract away from the gross vehicle mass the curb weight. So first up on the Rogue, that gives you a payload of 764 kilos. The Workmate, it's a Workmate, carries a lot of stuff. It has a payload of 935 kilos and the SR with a mild hybrid 915 kilos. So the higher grade model with all the extra little luxury bits in it, electric seats, electric roller shutter, it weighs a bit more. So the trade-off is it actually can't carry as much. We then look to towing specifically, and with towing 3,500 kilos. And I'd say here at this point, all these numbers you have to adhere to, both to be legally compliant and, more importantly, remain insurable. If you're overweight and you're involved in an accident, the insurance company may well walk away from you, and then you're really up that creek without that paddle. But looking in this and knowing this beforehand arms you to make the correct decisions in which vehicle you might select or wish to buy. And all vehicles, depending manufacturer model, they'll all be varied, they'll all have different capacities, and it'll be your role to figure out which one is going to suit it, what you need it to do. So we then look specifically at towing. All the Hiluxes here have what's called a gross combination mass. That is, how much can the Hilux weigh, and whatever you're towing, be it a big caravan, a big boat, a heavy trailer with lots of work equipment on it, all that stuff, they cannot weigh more than 5,850 kilos. Other vehicles, like the Ford Ranger for example, it can carry over 6 tonnes in the GCM. But you need to consider all that together, which one's going to be best suited for you. Now looking back here at the Hilux, GCM of 5,850 kilos. But the thing that lots of people forget is when you hook up that 3,500 kilo trailer onto the tow ball underneath here, the ball weight of 350 kilos, approximately 10% of whatever the weight is, transfers to be a part of your payload. It's physics. It's going to do what it's going to do. You can't ignore it. So out of your total payload here, with a 350 kilo ball weight, the Rogue here, its total payload, once you hook that caravan or boat up, it drops to 414 kilos. Again, 414 kilos for you, the family, your stuff, the fuel, starting to get very tight, very tight. The workmate, bit better, no dramas. It drops with a 350 kilo ball weight to 585 kilos that you can have in this car, and the SR 565. Again, the variance being how much the car weighs in the first instance. But they're all very, very important numbers to know about and be respectful of, because you've got to remain legally compliant to be insurable, both in the fleet space and private registration. There's no exceptions. So be safe, study the numbers, and know what you need it to be.